The news day continues here on One News Now. I'm Danny Laurel. Now here are the biggest stories on the economic and corporate front. The Philippine Economic Zone Authority approved 6.39 billion pesos worth of investments in the month of January. PEZA officer in charge, Tereso Panga, said these include 19 new and expansion projects. He noted that the investments are over 83% higher than those approved in January of last year. The biggest one is an economic zone development envisioned as an IT center in Makati City. Panga said that project alone is expected to generate more than 4 billion pesos worth of investments. The Philippines and Japan are expected to sign at least 7 key agreements in various areas of cooperation when President Bongbong Marcos visits Tokyo next week. Now, President Marcos will be in Japan from February 8 to 12. Japan is the only country with which the Philippines has a bilateral free trade agreement. The DFA said it is expected to facilitate closer defense, security, political, economic, and people-to-people ties.
We are expecting the signing of an umbrella terms of reference on humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. There is a proposed agreement on cooperation in the field of information and communications technology. There will be a memorandum of cooperation between the Department of Agriculture and the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries on agricultural cooperation.
President Bongbong Marcos has approved the creation of the Water Resource Management Office, or the WRMO. This new office aims to manage the country's water resources as well as respond to the current environmental challenges through concerted government effort. The palace says the president will release an executive order to enable water-related agencies to have a collaborative mechanism under the WRMO to implement water management programs. The WRMO will operate under the Department of Environment and Natural Resource. The office will also act as a transitory body pending the creation of the Water Resource Department. Now, still on water resources, the Metropolitan Waterworks and Sewerage System, or MWSS, expects the Kaliwa Dam to be completed by 2026. The MWSS sees the completion of the dam project once it secures the necessary permits for its development. This as the agency reports that the tunnel boring machine has been put to work in December last year. The MWSS adds that Maynilad and Manila Water are set to develop a water treatment plant in Teresa, Rizal once the dam and the tunnel are finished. Now, with the operation of the treatment plant, the MWSS says 600 million liters per day is expected to be added to other water sources. We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Danny Laurel. Now, the U.S. Federal Reserve has softened its stance in the fight against inflation with the delivery of a smaller rate hike. The Fed increased the benchmark lending rate by 25 basis points to a target range of 4.5% to 4.75%. But Fed Chairman Jerome Powell signaled that the battle is not yet over, saying more rate hikes may be necessary.
So we've raised rates 4.5 percentage points, and we're talking about a couple of more rate hikes to get to that level we think is appropriately restrictive. And why do we think that's probably necessary? We think because inflation is still running very hot. We're, of course, taking into account long and variable lags, and we're thinking about that. The story we're telling about inflation is, to ourselves, and the way we understand it, is basically the three things that I've just gone through a couple times. And again, we don't see it affecting the services sector ex housing yet. But I mean, I think our assessment is that we're not very far from that level. We don't know that, though. We don't know that. So I think we're living in a world of significant uncertainty. I would look across the spectrum of rates and see that real rates are now positive, by an appropriate set of measures, are positive across the yield curve. I think policy is restrictive. We're trying to make a fine judgment about how much is restrictive enough. That's all. And we're going to, that's why we're slowing down to 25 basis points. We're going to be carefully watching the economy and watching inflation and watching the progress of the disinflationary process.
Did you or your colleagues discuss the conditions for a pause at this meeting this week?
Well, you'll see the minutes will come out in 3 weeks, and we'll give you a lot of detail. We spent a lot of time talking about the path ahead and the state of the economy, and I wouldn't want to start to describe all the details there, but that was the sense of the discussion, was really talking quite a bit about the path forward.
Now, the U.S. Fed has raised rates 8 times since March of 2022, including 4 consecutive 75 basis point increases in hopes of dampening demand. Following the jumbo rate hikes, inflation in the U.S. has eased, and Powell says the Fed is focused on sustained financial conditions.
It is important that overall financial conditions continue to reflect the policy restraint that we're putting in place in order to bring inflation down to 2%. And of course, financial conditions have tightened very significantly over the past year. I would say that our focus is not on short-term moves, but on sustained changes to broader financial conditions. And it is our judgment that we're not yet at a sufficiently restrictive policy stance, which is why we say that we expect ongoing hikes will be appropriate. Of course, many things affect financial conditions, not just our policy. And we will take into account overall financial conditions along with many other factors as we set policy.
Globe Telecom and its partners have commissioned a Japanese company to finish the last leg of its subsea cable network by April. According to Globe, Japan-based NTTWE Marine is set to lay cables in the 9 remaining segments of the Philippine domestic submarine cable network. The project, which covers a total cable distance of 2,500 kilometers, started in July of last year. The $150 million subsea cable network is expected to bring fiber connectivity to remote areas of the country. The U.S. Trade Representative has identified notorious markets for counterfeit and pirated goods. The list includes Green Hills Shopping Center in San Juan and popular commerce platform Shopee. Business World quoted the USTR as saying that many counterfeit sellers have transitioned online. It adds that many stalls in Green Hills sell fake goods such as electronics, perfumes, and fashion items. The National Committee on Intellectual Property Rights is set to meet this month to address the issue. On to some updates on the global front. Bitcoin and crypto had a great January. Bloomberg's Abigail Doolittle with the full story.
Yeah, well, 2023 is setting up to be a pretty good year for crypto assets after last year's 64% plunge. In January alone, Bitcoin is heading to a roughly 40% gain. But the question is, will these gains stick around? Bloomberg's Abigail Doolittle has a look at the charts for us. Abigail?
And Matt, there is some reason to think these gains may stick around. So here's the monthly gain that we're looking at in January. As you mentioned, nearly 40%. At one point, it had been more than 40%, and we were looking at the best month since 2020. Right now, we're looking looking at the best month since the fall of 2021. Importantly, the RSI, this is a monthly chart, so that monthly RSI not anywhere near overbought. It has been overbought back in 2013, suggesting that the buyers are not tired yet. And when we combine that chart with this chart, this too is a monthly chart. We're really taking the longer view here. You can see a nice uptrend. You can see that Bitcoin is basically at all times hugging that 50-month moving average. You can also see these areas of consolidation that come down in triangles, that they tend to cause the buyers to completely sell and then reload and take Bitcoin higher. We're looking at a similar pattern right now. Matt suggesting that 2023 might be a great year for Bitcoin. You could even see Bitcoin take a run at its all-time high. And given the fact that in the past this has been used as a risk-on, risk-off sentiment, maybe 2023 is going to be a little bit more risk-on than many would have thought last year, Matt.
For more updates, visit News 5, the Philippine Star, and Business World online, or visit our website, onenews.ph, for more in-depth analysis. You can also catch One News on the Signal Play app. Register for a free account now. That's at www.signalplay.com, and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Danny Laurel. Join us again at 2 p.m. We are One News, all sides, all the time.